It's lovely to meet you. You will hopefully know me from such shows as Death a Kid. Or on High School Host Club.
Okay.
You're helping me. Ling in Full Metal. Was Druid Black Butler. I was Charon in Pokemon. Rosario plus Vampire. What's that one? Oh, not too from Fairy Tale. Gotta do that. Watanuki from Holic, Italy from Italia.
Remember those?
Oh, Naru from Ghost Hunt. Yes, he was so stylish. And Spock from Star Trek. But basically, how much slack can I? Let's see.
He took the Grayman, didn't he?
You
should. He took the Grayman.
I was talking, and it was hilarious. I was like, oh my god, that was like James Long, I think he's saying. Oh my god, that was him.
There we go. I play Rowan, and nobody believes me that I play Rowan. I see it. I read those forums. Kiddos. I know what's up. There's one guy. Hold on. He lives in Canada. Let me see if he. Because from America, we think, oh, you live in Canada? Oh, do you know this Phil from Saskatchewan? Like, no, we're in Ontario. And Manitoba, do you know Lawrence? Like, no, it's not. Canada's a big place. I get it. It's like when I went to school, they're like, oh, you went to SMU? Do you know Timothy? I go, it's 10,000 person school. I don't know the person you know. But there's one guy, and I won't say his name. I know his name. I know his full name. He and I had a back and forth on the forums a couple of years ago, like fierce. Like I got called into the production office at Funimation, and they told me I need to chill. It's because I was defending a show that I was the lead in, and he was making some comments about it that I was like, tell me more about this. Why do you think this? And so I was like providing all these behind the scenes answers that, you know, he probably isn't aware of. So I'm like, well, maybe if I explain the kind of the reasoning for X, Y, Z, you might see that this is why we did that. And he didn't care. I was like, no, oh, Haberkorn, I'll take a mañana any day of the week. He didn't say that, but I mean, like, you know, stuff like that. And it was very mean. He hurt, my heart is tiny, but he hurt it. And so, I have a little bird's heart. So don't do any sudden moves, they'll scare me and I'll have a heart attack. But then he comes to a convention. And I was asking, I go, so what's your name? And he told me his name is Einstein, and I go, so you want to bash me online, but you still want to get an autograph. Okay. So I signed someone else's name. But no, and since he comes up and he just told me, he's like, hey man, I'm getting married, and I'm like, I don't care! You're mean to me! You're my human donkey! But you know, whatever. I feel very lucky because, you know, a lot of times when you're an actor, especially in a very competitive city like LA or New York, things like that, you have to do other jobs, like you're a bartender, you're a waiter, things like that. I've been so fortunate, so very lucky and blessed to, I've just been an actor. I've never waited a table or anything, and I'm not that there's anything wrong with that. But I mean, it's just like whenever you're in LA and you're like, oh, I'm an actor, the next question is like, oh yeah, what restaurant do you work at? So I've been very, you know, I take a lot of pride.
I would say the Cheesecake Factory.
Just to give you an example, to tell you why I think that is two reasons. One, like I mentioned, I am Asian. That's not the first reason, but because my mother, so I guess she came over, and I'm the first generation to be born in the U.S. And so I have a lot of opportunity that at my disposal that she did not have. She came over from Vietnam, so I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Vietnam War and all that kind of stuff, but right before Saigon fell, she got out. Because once that fell, man, no one's getting out. So 2 days, 48 hours before it was lockdown, she snuck onto a boat with my family because my great uncle owned a dock that we could get out on, or they could get out on. And so they snuck on a boat and they made their way to California. And it's just like the movies. It's like Coast Guard pulls you over, they've got to hide under stuff, and things like that. I mean, it's dangerous. If you're caught, you're either killed or thrown in prison. And Vietnamese prison is not like American prisons, where you get like, visiting hours. Oh, there's a seahorse. Let's go ride on the little thingy over there. Merry-go-round? Awesome. Oh, I can't tonight. I've got to watch Dexter on Showtime. Like, no. Vietnamese prison is you sleep on plywood. You're lucky if you get 2 meals, 1 meal a day. I mean, that's what you're doing. You ain't making this highfalutin money making license plates. No, you're working hard like a slave. So that's Vietnamese prison. But, so they had to hide. It was really dangerous. I mean, my mother, and it really explains a lot because when I was growing up, I was wondering why she was so cold. Like, she was really, really difficult to hard. Like, I had a really tough, because I was raised in a single parent household. My dad took off when I was very little and left me with her. And so she was raising me, and I'll get to that, I'll come back to that. But so she goes to California, and it's hard for her. And so she works in a sweatshop. Sweatshop, that's not fun. I didn't say GameStop, I said sweatshop. And so she's working in a sweatshop, and they make their way to Texas because there's a big Asian community in Texas. And so she works in a sweatshop, and she's like, man, working in a sweatshop is not fun.
Oh my God.
Whoever said this was going to be like a resort is crazy. And she was working in a sweatshop, and so she goes, I don't want to do that anymore. And so she goes, I want to be something more. I want to be a doctor. Now, you got to think about this. My mother's first language was French. Then it was Vietnamese. French first, because the French dominated Vietnam. If there are any Frenchmen in here, you were punched in the face. No, I'm kidding. It's like, oh! It wasn't you. And then he takes off his mask. It was you. But French was her first language, then Vietnamese, then English. So she's in a country where her third language is that kind of main language. And she had $20 in her pocket when she made her way to California, and had nothing because they snuck on a boat. So all her stuff, all her possessions, everything that they had built up in Vietnam, gone. Not sold on eBay or Craigslist, and you kind of get some money for it. Nothing. All of it's gone. Wartime. Very bad. And so, she's like, I want to be a doctor. That's crazy to go from, you're working on a sewing machine. You think you're really going to be a doctor? You're a foreign, 4'10" Asian woman in America. Sorry, next dreamer. She said, F that. She goes, I'll work in a restaurant. I'll work my way up and I'll save money. And I don't care how long it takes me, I'm gonna do this. So she met my dad. She didn't speak very good English. He took advantage of that. On the second date, he's like, hey, we'll get married. And she's foreign. Sounds like a good idea. It's a horrible idea. But then I came along. Then he took off. So she's raising me by herself, working in a restaurant to save money for medical school, and all the while she's got to deal with me. And so, but she does it. She does it. She goes to medical school, and she's like, I'm dealing with, I'm being raised by lots of babysitters and the YMCA and things like that. I mean, it was hard living. We're living in these one-bedroom, small, tiny places because that's all she could afford. At the time, she's, like I was saying, remember I said she's very cold? Part of that is that's the culture. That's just for anyone have Asian parents in here? You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. If you land on the moon, they're like, well, you've got to come back and wash the dishes, son. I remember a time I also write plays and screen. I wrote this play and I got published in a magazine. I'm talking like I'm 15 years old. I go, Mom, look at this. I am in a magazine, my play. And she goes, son, it's time to eat dinner, son. What's wrong with you, woman? I was at a con recently and I called her, I said, talking on the phone, and I said, right, I love you, Mom. She goes, have a good day, son. but at the time, I was very upset. I was angry. There were some other issues that it's not going to mention here, but I'm dealing with a lot. And she's not there for me. And I was mad at her. I was so mad. I had a lot of anger. But what I didn't realize at the time was she was doing everything she could. Absolutely everything she could for me. For me, not for her. She's working long hours, 12, 14 hours a day. That's why I was at the babysitters. Because I was either at the babysitters or I was at the morgue with her. Not as foreshadowing like, son, you better pay or else you can. But like, that's where she's working. She's working on cadavers and tissue samples and brains. I've seen every organ of all your bodies. I know what you look like inside. And so, but I mean, can you imagine like 5 or 6 years old, she's opening up a refrigerator and you're like, oh, it's lunchtime. No, that's a leg. I've seen that stuff, man. Pulls out a leg, she gets a circular saw, she's like, oh. She Dexters that leg. There's a lot of, for those of you that eat pho, the flat meat that's in it? That's what the leg looks like when you cut it open. It doesn't taste quite the same because formaldehyde is not a good marinator, just FYI. So, but it was hard. It was very, very hard, and I had a lot of resentment towards her. And it wasn't until I got older that I was like, you know what? I get it. She was doing everything she could, but at the time, man, I was really mean to my mom, and I felt really bad about that. But she became a doctor. She came from absolutely nothing, and she rose up, became one of the most accomplished doctors in the nation. When you look in her office, there are diplomas and stuff and certifications that you wouldn't believe. I was like, I didn't know they made this many. And because she worked so hard. And so, for me in this profession, I had to prove to her, number one, that I could do something besides go off and be a doctor or a lawyer, which is what she wanted me to do. And so I worked so hard to be where I am today. So hard. I mean, I work 7 days a week on either getting gigs or doing the gigs or traveling to gigs or trying to arrange, all this kind of stuff. And I've been doing that for years. That's been my life. But it's out of the fact that she worked really hard in a foreign land. What's my excuse? This is my home. And I have no excuse not to work super duper hard every single day. Get an education. Try to, the odds are astronomical to be successful in this industry. You have almost the same amount of chance of winning the lottery. Seriously. It's the competition is fierce. And so I have to prove to her that I can do this. And that's why I work so hard, is because I owe it to her, I feel like, for what she gave me. And so I do that, and then there's one other reason. But the main reason is because, I got to show Mama that I can do it. So that's what blows me away when I go to cons and kids are like, I don't think college is for me. I don't think education is for me, and da-da-da-da-da. And I think back to how my mom would have killed to have an easier educational upbringing. She would slit a man's throat for me. Probably my dad's. And so that's the key thing, man, is making sure you take advantage of that stuff. I did it in school. I didn't take advantage of that stuff, and people are like, what kind of school can I go to for voice acting? What kind of education can I get to be a voice actor? It ain't that easy. But I tell you what, having an education is going to make it a lot easier than not having one. Go to college. Go to college. I was supposed to go to LA before college. And I was like, bam, I'm just going to go to LA. And she goes, you're going to do it on your own. See ya. She goes, or if you stay and go to college, I'll pay for your college. And give you what I